Well, good evening, internets and all the ships at sea. It's me, DP Knudten, for another edition of Bookward Bound, my 301-day journey from I should really do this to done. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about creating and self-publishing a brand new book called NONFICTION BRAND, Discover, Craft, and Communicate, the completely true, completely you brand you already are. And that's what I've been doing, coming down here every night for the past 287 days. I just had to look. And today is day 287 out of 301, which means I only have 14 left to go before this whole thing is done, which means the book had better be done. And frankly, it's in pretty good shape because you guys, my peer pressure posse, have been keeping me honest and coming down here every single night to work on the book in one form or another. And consequently, the book is written, but now it needs to be edited, proofread, final formatting, all that garbage. And that's what I've been working on for the past several days. And in fact, I just got notification from Amazon that my first hard copy of the book is actually in transit right now. It's a proof copy, so it's not available for anyone to buy yet. But it's my first chance to actually have a physical document in my hands that I can open up and bring my trusty blue pen and look for mistakes or look for formatting errors or look for, oh, that picture is too big or that page doesn't sit right. All those things that you can only tell when you have an actual physical example of the document you've created. So I'm very excited about that, but frankly, because I don't have a lot of time to waste, I have to still keep editing this whether I like to or not. So that's what I'm doing tonight. And I'm actually doing it in Microsoft Word. Pay no attention to that. I am monitoring my Facebook live feed just in case anyone joins and wants to ask a question. But I'm actually using Microsoft Word at this stage to do this phase of the book, which I would call production or final proofing, editing, that type of thing. Last time we left off, I was on page 100 of 200 and currently 252. Actually, I need to see where that goes up because the cool thing is I've been getting some blurbs coming in, and I think the blurbs are messing up my paging, my pagination, as they'll say, as they would say. Section breaks, blah, blah, blah. Nonfiction brand, which is a so cover, left read, right read, left read. Yeah, that'll get the pages back more somewhat, because I do want to have, no, maybe not. Read, right, read. Left, right. Yeah, I think I want to do a page here. Nope, not there. Good. Here. That'll be back, blank page. This over here. To show the text wrapping. That position 3 and 8.3. And actually, I want to put one here too. Text wrapping, square, position 3 0.3. Okay. Oh, there was already one there. Wasn't showing up. Blank. So that will be left, right, 2 pages of that. Left, right on the back page. May want to get rid of that. So left, right. Blank. Blurb page. Blurb spread. Yeah, leave that like that. Leave that like that. Okay. Now I can go to page 100. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do editing to screen like this because, you know, in the big scheme of things, editing on screen doesn't matter because things always change when you put it on paper. So you have to edit from paper. But I don't have paper to edit it from yet, so let's just say I need to do this way because it's the only way I can, right? All right, so take a look at this. And I'm going to read it aloud because that's the way I find out the obstacles, the challenges, the toe stubbing, pros, all that stuff. Read it aloud. Selective authenticity, TMI's much smarter social media sibling. I think it's important to flesh out this concept further because but a prevalent definition of authenticity is bandied about with abandon and tends to focus on the ooey gooey side of things a little too much, as in too much information, TMI. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for sharing freely of yourself, but again, including that professional filter alongside your personal posting persona. Again, always including a professional filter alongside your personal brand aligned posting persona. Think about it. We all have that one friend or family member who takes the desire to be truly authentic as a license to be a borderline, the borderline blowhard they'd really love to be. Under the guise of keeping it real, they share way too freely with information that is best left between them, their spiritual advisor, doctor, or deity. It's such a fine line between a great vulnerable share and a too much information train wreck. But like Justice Potter Stewart's definition of pornography, I know it when I see it, we all have finely attuned TMI detectors built in. And that's really what selective authenticity is about, making sure that you take your authentic self right up to the line without falling over the TMI cliff. Justin plays this TMI detector for his clients on a daily basis, but long before he puts up any post in the voice of his client, he insists on spending a full 6 months getting to know that client first. He also creates a fully documented personal brand foundation for the artist, using a comprehensive questionnaire to probe deeply into all areas of his client's personal and professional life. Justin covers the gamut, including things like family, how much you share and about whom, charity, do you have any favorite charities or causes, politics, dare to go there ever, in certain cases, Religion, front and center, in passing, not at all. Tone, what do you sound like online? Style, how formal or casual are you? Heat preference, how hot can your takes be? Take this up to make sure it doesn't mess my pagination up. The answer to these questions and many more need to be figured out well in advance of any situation that may call for a response from you, as tempered by your selectively authentic personal professional brand. That's exactly why Justin is so upfront diligent in understanding his clients and the many nuances surrounding who they are, what they do, and how they do it. Only then can he, with the client's full help and approval, create the personal brand foundation that enables them to respond to any situation quickly, cogently, and entirely consistently, and with the kind of authenticity that propels their personal brand strategy forward. With a foundation like this, you don't have to treat every development as a one-off what do we do now crisis. Instead, such temporal challenges become incredible opportunities to demonstrate who you are, what you do, and how you do it. In 5 before Common Era, BCE, the Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." He was right then and still is now. By creating a solidly founded, completely true, completely you personal brand, you're prepared for every opportunity that comes your way. The nonfiction brand moral of Justin's story: authenticity is great. TMI, too much information, is not. And in many professional cases, it pays to be strategic, smart, and savvy. Smart, savvy. Get rid of that and sometimes silent. I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. I return from my sneeze break. Thank you very much. Moving on. The undeniable attractivity of vulnerability. You know what this is? As you can read in the picture, it's an Audubon bird call. The way it works is simple. Hold the wooden barrel between the thumb and forefinger of one hand, then use the other to twist the metal key. What happens? You'll hear a high-pitched squeal and squeak that works wonderfully well in drawing out curious birds for easy bird watching. It uses a time-tested technique that works on animals of all species. It imitates the sound of an injured member of a specific community, in this case avian, but the concept works across the entire biological kingdom Animalia. I first noticed this unnamed phenomenon when I was a grad student at the University of Southern California. I would have to drive to campus on one of LA's notorious freeways every day and had numerous opportunities to observe the way humans dealt with traffic. One game I played as I drove along was never hit the brakes. And that's what I did. Try to never even touch my brake pedal in order to maintain a sometimes slow but always moving forward motion. The other game I played was Don't Look. The rules of this game were equally simple. If I saw a car off to the side of the road, don't look at it. Keep focused straight ahead. And when paired with Never Hit the Brakes, those two games kept me moving along just fine. There was just one problem, though. I was the only one playing either game. Everyone else was rubbernecking the disabled car pulled over, pulled over driver, disabled car, minor fender bender, or terrible accident. It didn't matter what it was or how severe the situation. If there was a car off to the side of the road, there was a sudden, completely unnecessary stop in forward traffic flow. That's when I realized something that brings the two brings together these two seemingly disparate. That's when I realized something that brings together these two seemingly disparate things. LA traffic, Audubon bird calls. All right, so I want to get that line up there. So if I go cut this down by 2 points, copy it, and just do a replace. I'm not messing too much, but I might have to go a little farther. One more. Yep. Ooh, actually, I can do that. And that takes care of all of it. Of course it does. Now I need to go back to 10 points. Up. Gain. Dang it. Let's bring this down a little in size. Let's bring it to 90%. Yep, that brings it. You know what this is? Yeah. It's cool. LA traffic and Audubon bird calls. They are the same thing, an external phenomenon that triggers a biological response in their respective organ. Biological response. Birds, hearing the call of an injured member of their flock, would come out of hiding to see what was going on and perhaps whether they could render some assistance. Same thing with LA drivers, except the assistance part. Same thing with LA drivers, except the assistance part. There you go. There are some things that command attention that can even penetrate the don't bother me bubbles of commuters late for work. And typically, it's all related to conditions of vulnerability. Conditions related to vulnerability. Why do we rubberneck? To see, sympathize, and celebrate. It's not us. Ever notice just how much of your Facebook feed is dedicated to the social media equivalent of freeway rubbernecking? Try this test. Head on over to your feed, then scroll down, counting the number of injured bird, fender bender type things you run into. Try it again on the algorithmically created Facebook watch feed. Keep in mind that watch feed is continually being calibrated to keep you watching longer. It serves you up the stuff that engages the deep part of your brain, that engages the deep part of your, let's say the reptilian. The reptilian part of your brain, almost forcing you to stay on the site rather than do the quick, I'll just pop over, see what's up with family and friends, check in. Let's see if check-in is a single word yet in the dictionary, or at least this dictionary. Check-in. All right, now I do the second thing I check, which is check-in usage. Check-in definition, and meaning. check in. You check in. A check in. Well, all right. So they're doing a hyphen. So let's do a hyphen. The family and friends check-in you thought you were doing. Now count the number of reality show cat fights, soldier family reunions. Turns. Reunions, forlorn pet adoptions, first date flameouts, massive fails, tearful confessionals, and a weak person flips the script and owns the bully. And situations they serve up. Just about all of those deliciously manipulative video clips are about some form of human vulnerability. And they are the video version of whatever addictive substance you prefer. As you've already read, I love the work and wisdom of Brené Brown. Her research on vulnerability has been a massive influence on my thinking about this core idea for creating social media activity that attracts, engages, and converts. It really does all come down to vulnerability. Let me give you a living, breathing example of this that's happening right now. George B. Thomas sharing a secret that launched a career. If you need an example of the attractivity of vulnerability in human form, listen no further than Nonfiction Brand podcast number 122 with George B. Thomas. After a wide-ranging conversation about how he's sharing a lot about the very human challenges he's facing, he dropped this bombshell of a personal story. I learned this lesson years ago. The magic moments in your life will only happen when you are secure enough to be vulnerable. And when I was taught this, I was sitting at Cheesecake Factory with Marcus Sheridan. I was getting ready to do my first keynote speech. He said, if you do not share with the folks the story you just told. The story you just told me, it won't be magical. And I said, you are out of your mind. I've been running from that for 25 years. Purposely, not years, comma. Purposely not sharing that piece of information. By the way, I've done the things that I've done to become the person I've become, and I'm a high school dropout. Period. But I wasn't going to tell anybody that information. It was on a need-to-know basis, and frankly, you didn't need it. And he was like, if you will be vulnerable, if you will do that for your first keynote out of the gate, it will be magical. And so I was like, okay. So my first screen, the first screen of my keynote, it was a black screen with white text. That said, I'm a high school dropout. The crowd started laughing, and I quietly said, I'm a high school dropout. There was a couple of little giggles. And then all of a sudden, dead quiet. You could hear a pin drop. And I said for a third time, I'm a high school dropout. The rest of the keynote was about marketing and metrics and analyzing, but everybody was listening for the entire time because I'm willing to be vulnerable. And my call to action to everybody listening to this DP would be that they should just be secure enough to be vulnerable, just long enough to see that magical moment happen. That happen. Because once you see it, just once, you're like, I'm in it to win it. I will do this the rest of my life. And at that keynote, I had a lady come up to me and she said, hey, your math teacher story, because by the way, I'm a high school dropout because a math teacher told me I would never amount to anything, and I really believed him. So be careful what you believe, people. Don't need that. She said, I really connect with your math teacher story. For me, that was my. And we sat and talked for 20 minutes about family and forgiveness. And when she walked out the door, I was like, I want to do this the rest of my life. George's dropout slide screen at the top of his keynote was his Audubon bird call. He may have been the only high school dropout in the room, but I bet he was. And the story about the math teacher, we all have one of those, or worse, in our lives, or worse, families. By taking the courageous step, this and this. By taking the courageous step to tell his complete truth from the very first moment of his presentation, he activated the undeniable attractivity of. And the result? Beyond anything he could have imagined just minutes before. The nonfiction brand moral of George's story: by being bold and vulnerable, George earned his way into the hearts and minds of his audience members by activating the innate empathy that exists within. Think the story was unique? Not at all. We all have our own versions of it and feel all the closer to George because he dared and shared. If you'd like to hear more about and from, check out episodes blah, 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 blah. And that's cool, 104. All right. So let's see. Is it too much to call them brandles? With a nice TM on the end. Branding is clearly about differentiation and demonstration, but there's one thing it does that makes it so incredibly valuable, not only to you, but for the people who buy your products and services. It aids in the creation of a little thing I call a brandle. I developed this concept a long time ago after hearing a story about a new business pitch that I was not involved with, but the agency I worked at was. A friend of mine who worked on the account side of things told me about a specific presentation he witnessed and its embarrassing aftermath. Let me share the story with you in a very familiar format, that of a fairy tale. Once upon a time, a traditional B2B advertising agency was invited to a potentially huge new business pitch. At this initial stage, it was all about the presentation of credentials and services. The new marketing director the prospective company was mostly interested in understanding the lay of the land when it came to local marketing services firms. Marketing services firms. And so no spec creative was necessary, and consequently, no creative representative was needed in the meeting. The presenting team, consisting of senior account-oriented people, arrived at their allotted time and took the client through the whole credentials dog and pony show of the agency's services, background, client list, awards won, and a whole lot more. Once they finished, the new marketing director said something that was both very simple and incredibly deadly. So who are you? The agency team looked at each other with more than a little confusion on their face. They had just spent the last 45 minutes showing exactly who they were as an agency. And so they responded back with exactly that. The client said, "No, I get all that stuff, but who are you?" Another pregnant pause caused him to continue with, "I've already met the funky, cool, creative boutique guys and another agency that was all about mobile first, but who are you?" More sweating and confusion reigned on the agency side of the table, with an added dollop of embarrassment, too. This guy was asking for a simple phrase that could sum up what the agency was all about in just a few words, not PowerPoint slides or narrative paragraphs. And they had nothing to give him. Now, had they had a creative in the room, they could have faked it pretty effectively, because that's what creatives do. Get rid of the because that's what creatives do. But they didn't, and so the meeting ended with them slinking out of the room and never hearing from the marketing director again. Why? Because they didn't have a brandle. This is where I should point out an all too common technique of mine. Whenever I want to underline a concept or coin word or phrase as a big idea, say, big idea, I give it a TM. There are potential legal reasons for this, but it's really just about saying, see this? It's a big freaking idea, so pay attention to it. And that certainly applies to the brandle concept. Let's give it that on. Make sure that is in fact superscripted. Yeah, that is superscripted. Could be superscripted. There you go. I'll copy that just so I have it. There are potential legal reasons for this. It's really a big idea. It certainly applies to the brandle concept. Superscripted. A brandle is nothing more than a brand handle. This is exactly what the client marketing director was asking for. His "who are you" question was really saying, what simple, memorable phrase is going to allow me to remember all the who you are, what you do, and how you do it stuff you presented days and even weeks after you presented? It's easy to remember that the funky, cool, creative boutique guys were the ones who were all tatted up in supreme streetwear. It's also easy to remember the mobile first agency team that came in and presented their credentials via smartphones. But you, who did an absolutely non-memorable PowerPoint while dressed in matching blue suits, all of a sudden the question of who are you makes a lot more sense. Unfortunately, the agency did not have a brandle, and they did not live happily ever after. A personal brandle is the handle on your "This Is Me" suitcase. The sad but true story above was all about a company brand, but the need for a brandle is just as dire for a personal brand and for the following reasons. Picture in your mind a big suitcase or steamer trunk. Now fill this suitcase with all the things that make you interesting, expert, and unique. Images representing all your hobbies, diplomas, professional expertise, uncommon experiences, favorite foods, pets, family photos, literally everything that makes you you. Literally everything that makes you you. Makes you you. Now zip that suitcase up and notice that it's missing a critical feature, a handle. Have you ever tried to pick up an overstuffed suitcase that is missing a handle? Unwieldy at best, it's almost impossible to get down a hallway, much less hand it off to someone else that might be interested in learning more about you. That's where your brandle comes in. It's the fun, interesting, provable, unique, and relevant thing about yourself that eases your introduction to others. Just look at your friend group or extended family. If you're telling a story about one of those treasured people and need to give just enough intel to provide context for the story, you might come up with a quick and dirty descriptor like, he's my brother-in-law. He's my brother-in-law who owns the vegetarian restaurant. Or she's the one who does all that Etsy stuff you love so much. These short descriptions offer just a hint of what makes these people so interesting, and enough to make you want to hear more. A brandle isn't the full meal. It's just an intriguing taste that will make you want to order more. My brandle is pretty darn obvious, as it's spelled out in the title of this book. While I'm a writer, creative director, conceptual collaborator, communication strategist, and much more, branding, and my distinct variety of it, nonfiction branding, is where I hang my hat. It's also my best argument and description for, bingo, why anyone should seek out my services. Without that premium brand positioning, I'd just be another commodity writer and creative. I have a brandle. I'd just be another commodity writer. I have a brandle that serves as the singular conceptual foundation for just about every effort I make online in real life. You know him. He's the nonfiction brand guy. Is a great introduction, and one that typically happens long before I meet you. So what's your brandle? Is it tell me more intriguing? Can you back it up with an entire suitcase full of personal and professional proof points? Does it differentiate you from your competitors? Does it attract those you can best serve? If the answer to all these questions is an emphatic yes, congratulations. Congratulations. You've got a completely true, completely you brand. All right. One, 108. I think I'm going to stop here for the night because I don't want to burn myself out. I only have 14 days left to go, but I still have 14 days left to go. So rather than beat myself up and tire myself out, I'm going to do what I've done for the previous 286 days, which is know when to quit. Because if I kept going and burnt myself out and got tired of doing this, I wouldn't come back here tomorrow night and do it. And yet, I will be back here tomorrow night because that's the deal that I made you. On March 6th, Friday, March 6th, I made the promise to you, my Peer Pressure Posse member, that I was going to come down here and work on this book in one form or another for at least 15 minutes to an hour every single day for 301 days. And guess what? With the exception of 2 days where I was deathly ill with Lyme disease of all things. Don't worry, I'm all over it. It's all fine. But I did have it, and it was pretty painful. With the exception of those 2 days, I've been down here every single night since Friday, March 6th, working on the book. And that's why it's in the condition it's in, good, bad, or ugly. But it will be getting done, and it will be posted to Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing platform on January 1st. Guaranteed. I do guarantee that. So, thank you so much for keeping me honest and making me come down here. I'm DP Knudten for the Nonfiction Brand podcast and all things nonfiction branding. Check out the podcast wherever you get your fine podcasts for free. And please like it, subscribe, refer it to others, and most of all, could you do me a big, big solid and review that podcast wherever you listen to your podcast? Because that helps other people find it. It really, really works that way. So thank you very much in advance for helping me out. That's it for me tonight. I will see you tomorrow. But until then, theme music, take us on out. I'll see you tomorrow night.